Well, Destiny 2 Season of the Seraph has been out for a few weeks now. We've experienced the full range of content, so we've got story, seasonal activities, a dungeon, an exotic mission, great loot, an overhaul of competitive ranked PvP, and quite a lot more as well. Today, I want to dive into my thoughts on the season so far, and what we still have to look forward to when it comes to the rest of the season in Season of the Seraph. Without further delay, let's dive right into things. So first of all, the story. So this was a much predicted storyline with Anna Bray and Rasputin coming back into the fold. Xivu Arath also takes a starring role, given she's trying to get hold of Rasputin's warsats and cause an extinction level event on Earth. So we got to restore the Warmind Rasputin, given he was siphoned into an engram when the pyramid ships turned up in Season of Arrivals just before Beyond Light. Osiris, well, he seems to be okay again, having only drunk a restorative tea made out of Nezarec only a few weeks ago. Plus we got Clovis Bray and Elsie Bray along for the ride as well. Well, there's something not quite right with Clovis, and given we're in that mode of having to trust him rather than wanting to work with him, and it appears as if getting Rasputin back isn't going to be as simple as we first thought. So as well as the weekly narrative beats, we also have a great story with the dungeon, the exotic mission, and while the story is a little bit confusing sometimes with many robot names and war mines and all that kind of thing, we've got to remember all that stuff, and it's still very gripping as we lead into the main story of Lightfall, inevitably make our way to Neptune in the latter part of the season. I don't know about you, really enjoying the story this season, especially last week's story content as well, where we got to go back to the Iron Temple, and we managed to get Rasputin into the Exo frame, and Anna flashed out Clovis, although I think we're still going to have some really good moments for the rest of the season. We're only on step 4 of the seasonal mission at the moment. We've still got at least 3 or 4 steps to go, and I think Clovis might have something up his robotic sleeve. Well, next up we've got the seasonal activity, Heist Battlegrounds. They've been given a major update in difficulty this time. So we've got regular Heist Battlegrounds and Legend Heist Battlegrounds that often feel like nightfalls compared to strikes regarding to the difficulty. Structure is pretty interesting as we start out in a battle in an open space on somewhere like the Moon or Mars. Yes, Escalation Protocol Mars is back. Then we open up a Seraph bunker, spelunk inside, defeat a few enemies to delve further into the bunker, and then face off against a combination of Hive and Fallen. Now, it's all really refreshing to have a single season activity to focus on, plus the difficulty is nice, and the loot is very good as well. But more about loot in a minute. First of all, let's talk about that dungeon. So the dungeon is called Spire of the Watcher. This one is based on Mars near the Enclave, and much of the early feedback about the dungeon was it was short, the mechanics were simple, and the bosses were bullet sponges. And while I agree with the latter feedback about the bosses being bullet sponges, I really have come round to the mechanic and come round to this dungeon completely, whereby we have to reconnect electrical cables through the different play spaces. So I really like the vertical nature of the dungeon, plus the loot is excellent and there's secrets as well. I still don't have my cowboy hat, although I do have all the other armour. Now the Tex Mechanica loot is fantastic, including the new sidearm. That can roll Desperado. I was lucky enough to get one with Desperado. We've got the long arm, a legendary version of Dead Man's Tale. The dungeon is also farmable, meaning you can go in time and time again if you're still looking to get a full set of cowboy loot. Well, next up, we've got Operation Seraph Shield. This is an exotic mission. So the exotic mission is relatively new in the game, only a couple of weeks old, but I've really enjoyed my time with it so far. Seraph Shield is mainly puzzles and a few encounters. Certainly one of the best exotic missions Bungie have come out with in a long time. Now, Vox Obscura was another exotic mission earlier on in the Witch Queen, although this one far exceeds Vox Obscura. Well, definitely for me. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about it. This one reuses some assets from Deepstone Crypt. Personally, though, I don't really mind too much. This is one of the most aesthetically pleasing environments that we have in Destiny. Plus, you got all the individual moments like going out of the space station, handing yourself into the Fallen before running through a catch, all guns blazing. Then at the end of the exotic mission, we've got the exotic pulse rifle Revision 0, which we can customize week over week with 4 catalysts. Then we've got zones and secrets to uncover with the mission itself. It may not hit the heights of the Whisper mission or 0 Hour, but this is by far the best exotic mission we've seen in Beyond Light and Witch Queen era Destiny. Well, next up, let's have a look at the loot. So I'm talking about the weapons and the armor. So loot this season has been absolutely excellent. We've got the reissued Icolos weapons, the selected Seraph weapons through the dungeon. The Icolos weapons are nice and easy to get, finding the Rasputin nodes around the system, and combining the resonant stems to create a map to find the loot. It's a neat little puzzle to get some reprised weapons, which are better than ever. The seasonal weapons are good too, so the pulse rifle and the linear fusion rifle both stand out as weapons to chase. You've also got that new machine gun as well, which is absolutely melting bosses, so there's definitely a lot of really good loot to chase in Season of the Seraph. Exotic weapons are decent too, so we've had a couple so far. The seasonal exotic is called the Manticore, which is a submachine gun that basically allows you to fly. And while this may end up as a little bit of a novelty, it was impressive in the opening moments of the season. We've got another exotic as well called the Hierarchy of Needs, which is an exotic bow from the dungeon. This is a really interesting one. I don't have this one just yet, but I've definitely seen a lot of other people playing with that exotic bow, where you can build up something called a guidance ring. So precision hits and final blows build guidance ring energy, and opposing guardians grant additional energy, and at full charge, hip firing creates a guidance ring. Then you've got Apollonic Tangent, so arrows fired through the guidance ring release seeking projectiles and do more damage based on distance travelled. So that sounds absolutely awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I just haven't been lucky enough with that final boss in the dungeon so far. As well as the weapons, we've got great armour sets, including the Assassin's Creed crossover. Plus we've got the Arc armour, which really should have been introduced in Season 18. However, it is better late than never. The Dawning armour set is excellent as always. And also we've got the Seasonal Warmind set from the Season Pass, and also the Seasonal Activity too. Well, next up we've got PvP. So this season has seen a major rework for competitive PvP, with the introduction of the competitive division and a ranked playlist. I've seen a lot of negative feedback concerning new competitive. However, personally, I quite like it. And in terms of loot to chase, we've got Rose, a 140 hand cannon reissued from Destiny's past. Once you complete your placement matches, that is 7 regular matches of comp, you're going to get a static roll of Rose. Then, week over week, you can complete 3 matches more to get a random rolled version of Rose. And this gun has some excellent perks. You can't really go wrong when it comes to getting perks on the Rose. Problem with comp at the minute is there isn't really an incentive to keep playing. There's no unique cosmetics for comp, and you can't show off your rank in game. These are basic design flaws that are going to turn off a lot of players. So Bungie may be laying the groundwork for further competitive rework features in the future, like adding more loot and cosmetics, but I've heard plenty of feedback from top tier players that this really isn't it. In fact, many PvP players are questioning their place in the Destiny 2 ecosystem at the minute, which is quite a shame to see. Personally, I'm having a lot of fun in comp this season. The mode is motivating me to come back and play week over week. However, I am not a high-level player, and even though I've been playing Destiny 2 PvP for years, I'm still quite new to PvP and don't really know the nuances of why a game mode is good or bad or not. I kind of just go by game feel, and if it feels good, then I am enjoying it. And comp, for me, at the minute, feels quite good. So what I do know is what I enjoy, and so far so good. I think Bungie could definitely improve this mode over time. I'm looking forward to what they can do with it in the future. Well, next up we've got events. So Festival of the Lost and Solstice were criticised for being overly grindy, especially against the backdrop of Season of Plunder, which had the overriding themes of grindiness, really putting players off. The Dawning this time round was much better, and I breezed through the triumphs for the title, the aptly named Star Baker, and by the end of it I could happily continue playing the Dawning activities or the game loop. Whereas at the end of the Festival of the Lost title, I really didn't want to engage in anything after that. I was just happy to finish that title. Okay, next up, my final thoughts. So we're only about 4 or 5 weeks into the season, but we've already enjoyed a lot of content in Season of the Seraph. Lightfall is on the horizon, scheduled to release on the 28th of February 2023, and no doubt as the season continues, we're going to find out more about Clovis Bray, Rasputin, and Xivu Arath. Things are inevitably going to take a dark turn. And to be honest, I'm 100% here for it. I'm happy to report that Season of the Seraph is one of the best seasons that we've enjoyed in Destiny 2 throughout the entire year of the Witch Queen. And I'm really looking forward to see how this takes us into Lightfall. Also, really interested to hear what you think about Season of the Seraph if you've been playing. And if you haven't jumped into Destiny 2, now is a great time to do it. We've got a new expansion just around the corner. Well, let me know in the comments what you think about Season of the Seraph. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again. I'll see you soon. I'll leave you with some footage of me running around with the exalted truth.